There's some nice nose art. I bet Walt Prey would like that. Mitchell would like that. This is one really great book, and I really have enjoyed reading this and sharing it with you. Great. Nose art. Usually put that on your plane. Here's one thing I have to decide on yet. These the squadron letters. Oh, this is Polish Air Force. Hey, that's cool. This is the little insignia that identifies the Polish Air Force, and we're in the W. These are the squadron markings. Cool. We can have a windy Polish Air Force. Nose art from Italy here. Hey, nice book, Lampion. Just what I was talking about, the Polish insignia. Yeah, start the engine. Don't worry, these guys will get out of the way in time. Yeah, right. Nose art. Check out the nose art. Whoops, Joe Champ lands inverted. Champ, you better never do that. This is the book, and I just hope you...
Tuned up first. It didn't homogenize the way I wanted to. So what I want to do, and again, we're in the learning curve. This is stuff, every time you do it, it's an invention. I want to...
Still more work to do here. I'm just trying to get ideas more than anything else. Ideas. I want to work on my nose art. I want to do the rest of the squadron markings today. So many things. This is, I don't know, it's unbelievable. How many things?
Now, what I'm doing here basically is playing musical chairs, trying to come up with some nose art pattern here. So what I'm doing is I just put this over on the model, and I realize it's just not exactly the shape I want. What I'm going to do is try to make a shield. I'm really inventing my own squadron here. This is obviously not prototypical. But what I'm going to do, this was a little too pointy, by the way. And inside of here, I'm going to put the outline of a Spitfire. So what I'm going to do is arrive at, I see that's not even right. I want more, turn this way. I want to make these kind of shieldy looking things. A little more curve. And again, the way you do this, just go back and forth. And I'm going to put in here, I'm hoping anyway, and I got an idea from one of the pieces of real nose art, the outline of a Spitfire. I'm going to make a little Spitfire out of plywood in here, try to make the top view, and so I can trace them out right in here and then come up with some kind of little slogan like Real Many Quiche or something. But anyway, that's going to do a little playing here. Obviously, I'll do it off camera, probably come up with what I want for some kind of nose art here. This is Nose Art City.
Well, just roughly, this is what I have concocted. Of course, it's not to scale or anything, but I'm just trying to get this idea in my mind. And that was something like what I'd like to wind up with. So let me get some 64th plywood and lay this out. I picked out a little paper pattern. Of course, I'm trying to trace it on 64th plywood here. This is not exactly my, not exactly my first choice, but I don't even know if I'm going to be able to cut this reasonably. But the idea of this would be that I could make in effect an incline template out of this piece of plywood. I could cut my pattern, and I could adjust this to be a little more like what I had in mind, but always good to start with a little paper pattern. Now I'll cut that out and see if I like it, if I don't like it, whatever. Now of course I'll save that, no matter what, I'll save that for next year. And nice thing about doing this, it's very non-committal. You can make 20 of these up until you get exactly what you want. And this would be no different if you wanted to put this on a nose of a Gieske Nobler. No saying you couldn't use this, or if we get Champ, who I'm sure is going to be making the world's most awesome P51, and Champ, don't you wimp out, man. I want to see complete nose art, radical paint schemes, fantasy aeroplanes, who knows what. Anyway, I think what I'll do here is just gonna try to make this more to my liking. I can just use the other side. So what I did, I transposed this out onto a piece of 16 plywood because it was so flimsy up here on the 64th. I traced it out, and then what I'm doing here, and I'll tell you, this looks easy to make this hole. What I've been doing, I just roughed it out with a Dremel tool, and I've been trying to get it symmetrical with an X-Acto knife. I tried Dremeling it, I tried a couple of different ways, and the most practical way to do this is with with an ordinary knife. So I'm just going to hack away at this until I'm happy with the shape, and then the last thing I'll cut out the outer edge. Now as I'm finishing off all these edges, I'm trying to make this look like some kind of a top view of a Spitfire. One of the things that crossed my mind is I need a little catchy slogan up here, of course, and I haven't got one yet. So if you have one, send it in the next 30 hours. Anyway, something like the Ghost Squadron or something like that. Ghosts from the past, gone but not forgotten, forgotten and not gone. I don't know, Karen will have something cute when she comes home from work. I'm sure she'll have something appropriate. Anyway, the next thing is I'll cut this out, put the tape recessed back so that the ink doesn't run underneath, and this can be my, number one, it'll be my template to cut out the pattern, and it'll also be my inking template so I can get a nice neat ink line around everything. It's harder to do this than you think it is. I'm really surprised how hard that is. Now see, this is what the rubber cement should look like. It should be watery and thin, and I'm doing the paper this time because I want to get around all the corners. You really could only do one side, it'd probably work fine, but you can't let it really dry. It's got to be sticky and get it right up in place. Now, with the fresh cement, of course, the edges stay down better. You want to get all the rubber cement out, just peel it up. It balls right up. Then I want to slap some tin foil on here, spray this side. And I kind of got my final shape on that nose art. And I'll pass those templates on to Joe and Bob, who are building Spitfires. I guess I already mentioned when I talked to Randy. Randy's hot, he's building a Spitfire too, so we may have a Spitfire convention at the Nats. And of course Kaz is building one. So who knows what the hell's going on with Spitfires. It's just Spitfire, I don't know why everybody all of a sudden likes Spitfires. Unbelievable. It's like when you buy a Buick, you look around and everybody's buying a Buick too. Just one other tip that Jimmy Casale actually showed me on this is to get in all the corners, go right into the corners, when you're using new rubbers. I can't believe I did that other side with that old shit. I should have just stopped and went to the store. Anyway, Craig went and got me some, and he was gone for 2 hours. I think he met his shop at the go-go place or something. Now that we have these 2 new go-go places within walking range of the house, it's hard to go for lunch, you know, and be back in 10 minutes. Sorry, Karen. Now I'm doing the same thing here of just scuffing this clear. I want to lay out the nose art. Again, a lot of crazy names are going through my head. I don't even want to repeat some of them, but to put something wild up here anyway. I'm sure Joe, I'll talk to Joe tomorrow too. He'll have some input for me. Good idea to get it as flat as possible. I'll just take that pattern I have and just redundantly cut out some patterns, and then figure out where I want them spaced, high, low, get them vertical, horizontal, even. Let's see, by just having a piece of tape on that pattern, I can just move that pattern around, back, forth, forward, front, till I get a spot on here where I think I like it. And I'll cut out the pattern mask and put it right over that and then peel that out. That'll set me in position. Then I can use that pattern to get the other side and look from the front that then one isn't higher than the other, one isn't further forward than the other. Now what I did, I laid this out, and it's a good thing I thought of this. I wanted to leave myself plenty of room for the exhaust, the simulated exhaust, and if I had put it where I originally started from, I would wind up where the exhaust would cover half of it or interfere. So I kind of moved it back a little bit further, and I don't know, I'm going to go look at how I want to lay this out. I want to lay out the exhaust and that before I make a final decision here. So I can bend this back, use this for a little bit of a, I've got the other side on already, so I want to make sure I don't move the alignment. By the way, having this stuff done in colored paper is really nice, because you get an idea. For instance, if you wanted to make this orange or some other color, you'd say, ooh, yeah, I didn't know how it was going to look until it was done. It's nice, you can move it around a little bit, you have to commit it here. Pull this guy right out. Make sure the 2 points are right on target, yes. And this is more important than ever, is get all the stuff out. And then I have my little plywood pattern, which is a complete replica of this, which will allow me to make that little template so that both sides are the same also, of the little outline, the little shadow line of the airplane. Now I'm just going to spray this on, and it's going to be really the end of this session, but I'm going to go to let it dry. Next time I come back to this will be ready to go. I got a nice set of pictures from Dick Carville today. Dick's been watching a lot of videos and enjoying them. Says he's enjoying them a lot, and he's glad to pass on some photos. This is an old ship, and there's a good point here. This is a ship he flew for many years, and he passed it on to Brian McCarthy, who's now getting some flights out of it. So never trash these old ships. And this, of course, is Dick's Zealot. Dick's done 3 of these so far. This is number 3, and these are really pretty planes. Open cockpit motif, checkerboards on the wing. Really good performance too, real good. This is one of the solid designs I have to say I've seen fly in some wind, some calm, some good conditions, and bad. Now here's Dick's latest creation. Look at this, all built up structure in the back. Nice canopy, built up wing. And here it is finished. Look at that, nice paint job. Dick, I appreciate the photos, and I'm glad you're enjoying the videos. Now anybody that doesn't know Dick Carvel personally, like I've had the privilege to know him, and his wife Doris, this is his real plane. He doesn't have it anymore, but he sent this picture to me, and he knows I had an air coupe at one time. And I think the caption reads something like, "Eat your heart out, Ertnowski." Nice plane. Needs nose art though. Now here's a picture of Dick's shop, and this is really, I actually got a lot of stuff in here. It's unbelievable. That's his latest plane, of course. Dick, I appreciate all the pictures. Thank you very much, and we'll be sending you some more videos out soon, kid. Hang loose, goose. Oh, it's nice when it dries up. Oh, I love it, I love it. Okay, I gotta pull these off, nice and slow. Do what to say, get the rubber cement off. And I can work on maybe some more ideas for this nose art deal. Now a couple little tips, and even I didn't remember this. This is the kind of stuff I should. I wound up using paper that had ink on the back of it. It was my writing paper, and it left my name on the side of the fuselage, so the rubber cement eats into the ink. So use plain white paper, I guess. Definitely, would be the best choice. Now, the fanatic that I am, I'm still touching up little spots. In fact, I've gotten to the point now where I'm looking with my glasses to find spots that I can touch up. Things you can't even see normally through this, I don't know what your naked eye stuff. But anyway, what I'm going to do now, I have to call it quits for this session. We're going to go get the wallpaper for our room upstairs, and the word came in that that's ready. So what I'm going to do is all of these letters, the yellow letters, the fuzzy letters, let's call them. Maybe that's a great name. We ought to have a little nickname for the plane, Fuzzy. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he? Anyway, and I want to make up here a coat of clear, back here a coat of clear, and I'll get another coat of clear on the canopy before I pack it in today. This way that clear can be drying. Now, in the past I've taken these little deals, these nose art things, and done them right away. But it's really nice if you get a couple of coats of clear right on the edges, then just touch it with 600 paper, and then the ink lines are perfect. If you don't do that, usually the ink lines will wear away because you're in a step where there's paint, and you'll break the edge, and then later on you do 2 coats of clear, you say, oh God, look at that, and you got to go back and re-ink it. So maybe I can beat the system a little bit that way, I don't know, but and a little bit more on the cockpit. The more I can get on the cockpit, just start to fill in all those little steps from where bars go and bars come back. But I really get the feeling this is looking more and more like a Spitfire, and I hope you're enjoying sharing this adventure, boy, and it's been an adventure. Now, speaking of nicknames, this is just a little side thing. I have about 5 minutes for. What I want to do is spray the paint and then run out of here like a thief. Every one of these planes has some kind of a nickname. No matter this, Greenaway, and Busso called this the Toxic Avenger. That stuck like glue. The Red Baron used to have, I won't mention it on the video, there might be women watching, and Strega has a very derogatory, negative name that I'm not going to pass around. Tsunami became Salami. The Killer Bee had another nickname. They used to call it King Arthur. And every plane has a nickname. I just have a feeling, and believe me, I didn't plan it this way, but FZY, I have a feeling that's going to stick. Fuzzy. In fact, I wish I could Maybe I could name the nose art the Fuzzy Ghost Squadron anyway. I'm sick, I know it. I'm losing it. Now speaking of nose art, this B here, whatever, I don't know what he is. This is one from Champ's Ghost Squadron. Another thing too I'm going to try to do, I'm going to definitely outline the squadron's numbers in black. And I'm going to even try, no chance this, I don't know if this is going to work out. I'm going to try to make some 60-foot plywood circle guides so I can put an outline around that. Kind of what I'm going to try to do is copy or steal this insignia art off the plane. Something I never do is steal and copy. See, now this one, if you were to make up a nickname for this plane could be like Puff-U. So, hey, what I'm suggesting, Joe, is when you pick out your squadron letters, don't pick out anything that they can make it any worse. These planes will have enough nicknames without adding any fuel to the fire. You know, now starting right now, I guess this would be a good time to mention it, or think about it. What I'm going to try to do is what I call, because I don't really have a better name for it, is selective application of clear. In other words, one of the problems somebody can have is you go to do the clear. You finish off all your things, obviously we got to do ink lines and numbers and letters. But what happens, and it's a mistake, is you go and put all this clear on a plane. And what happens is, right out here you have the same thickness of clear as you have on the nose section and whatever. There's places on the plane that you should have 10 times more clear than the rest of the plane. Anywhere there's a rib cap, any edge of paint, any edge, canopy, most clear on the whole plane will be on this canopy. Nose, everywhere on the nose you're going to wind up moving it and grabbing it and squeezing it and everything. Where there's a lot of lettering and there's a lot of high and low spots here and this lettering on, that assembly right there. The bottom of the plane is probably going to have 1/3 the amount of clear as the top, but the top should be perfect. Now, if you're willing to trade away the weight penalty, hey, have a ball. Put on 10 ounces of clear. Do the bottom the same and whatever. But remember, one of the compromises of this plane that we've had to resign ourselves to is I'd like to make the top 5 with this plane. I'd really like to. You know, it would be. I think that's the best we can hope for, given the politics of the event. But even that's an accomplishment. Even that's something to be said. If we can get this plane into the top 5, bingo. I'll feel like I've accomplished something. And so, selectively putting on the clear. Wherever there's a little, now this is a little touch-up spot. I'm going to be selective and put the clear there. There's the edges of the rudder, edges of the elevator, a lot of clear. Anywhere paint changes all the lines. And then when I have wherever there's electrosets, then when I have all the selective clear on, then I'll take whatever clear is still left out of those 2 quarts, put it in 3 equal jars, put 1 jar on the bottom, turn the plane over, and anything I can see from the bottom I'll put that amount on, turn it over, and put the 2/3 on the top. That's generally gotten me a 7-ounce finish that looks really, really nice on the top and a little bit better than mediocre on the bottom. And I still have the 7-ounce instead of the 12-ounce or whatever the amount of weight is. So with that in mind, I'm going to go mix up some clear, still relatively thick, not a lot of extra thin, and just get some on these selective little areas that I've just painted, selectively canopy, and maybe get a little bit on these edges, if nothing else just on the top to get me a little head start on getting that selective clear on. going right over the edges. One thing, I get a little time here before I have to go. I think I get all my pens ready. I have a nice pen set, and obviously you could buy these in art supply store. For the people that have never done ink before, I'll go through this as quick as I can. You always want to use the ink that says to draw on film. You don't want to use the ink that says draw on paper. That's one tip. Tip two is I always leave the pens filled. Of course, Bob Martens and other professional draftsmen have told me you really shouldn't do that. So here it is. It's a year since I used this pen, and half of them, either the ink is dried up or something's crazy's happened. And this is probably, of all the steps to building a plane, this is the one I don't like. In fact, I can't even open this damn thing up here. This is one of the steps I dread, is having to clean the pens, load them, put the ink in, and I gotta get pliers and open this up. Now, Lou Dutko used to be a professional draftsman, engineer, some kind of technician where he used these kind of pens all day in his job, and he used to tell me something. I didn't believe it back then, but I believe it now. He said, build a plane, go buy some new pens, 2 or 3 new pens. At the end of the job, don't even save them, throw them away. And I don't know that he's right, but there sure isn't much of a case against that. Now, if you've never inked a plane before, let me get a toothpick. You want to each, I'll just do one pen on camera. You got to make sure that each, I just bought brand new ink too. Of course I didn't buy brand new rubber cement. Filling these pens up can be a royal pain in the ass. You almost always get ink on you. It's almost guaranteed. You want to have some alcohol around, Q-tips, rags, alcohol to take off. Obviously some of this gets on your hands no matter what you do. And I've been so careful so many times, and I still make a mess. I'm sure people, this is probably the one part of building a plane that I really wish like I could have this slave that would come over, the drafting slave come over and ink my plane. And yet people like Busso, look at this all over the place. Where the hell did it go? Anyway, the professional draftsmen among us, they look forward to this because then they can get us on one-upmanship. But I really do hate pens. Before I do anything, I want to see if it's going to write. Now, when they don't write, things I've tried to do is soak them in Windex. I've bought pen cleaner. I've done it, and you know what people think is, oh, Wendy's pens never get clogged up. Yeah, bullshit. Everybody's pens get clogged up. And I'm just going to have to keep playing with this. If this doesn't clean it up, I'll soak it in Windex and go on to another pen. Here we go. Hooray! Make a fool out of me. Anyway, any number of drafting pens, Stead, Ladder, make pens. Who the hell are these? Koh-i-Noor. Boy, if you could only buy pens that already had the ink in them. See, when I get frustrated, I resort to shit like this. I squeeze the tube until ink comes out. I'm sure Bob Martens right now is probably having a heart attack going, don't do that! Oh. Well, he's right. Anyway, this one has the widest tip, so this is one I know I'm going to need, so I'm going to go, there we go. Oh my God, look at this, he's making inclines.
What a professional. Okay, that's one. Look what happens to your hands, though. Before you're done, you look like Ink Man. Don't think, unless you're a professional draftsman, don't think you're going to have clean hands when the day is over. And this is probably another non-approved thing, but it does work from time to time. I just put maybe 1/4 of an inch of Windex into a glass. This cleans the tip of the pen off. I've got a couple of these puppies writing now, so I really feel like I'm amazing. And I'll just let that soak there for a few minutes. The Windex is probably not the worst stuff in the world to clean your hands with. No, Bob sent me in all these tips, and they apply, like if you're really a draftsman, like having jewel tip pens and stuff. Well, I just can't justify the price. That's the problem. So if somebody out there is on a big guilt trip and they want to send me a jewel tip pen that costs about $80 or something, some guy wants to say, well, that poor Wendy couldn't afford a pen when he was a young kid. I can't afford a pen now. And what I'm trying here, I shot some Windex down into this pen. Of course, I got 6 or 8 of them, so if I lose one along the way, I took some Q-tips and some Windex here. Let's see if this works. I'm experimenting more than anybody here. But what happens is once you get a pen working, I may as well do this, shoot it right in there. Once I get a pen working, it's good for the life of that plane. It seems like it doesn't go bad until you let it sit for a year. And I'm sure the answer is kind of common sense. You're not supposed to let it sit for a year without cleaning it. So maybe in my case, I ought to buy 1 or 2 pens a year like Lou Dutka said and just shit can them at the end of the time. Now that means this is now clean. Let's see how cool we are. If we can get even 1 or 2 of these going, I'll feel like I'll have a head start on tomorrow when I actually want to start the inking. I've heard too that you can put a drop of alcohol in the ink. Oh, I've never done that. But I'm going to be experimenting. There won't be that much ink on here, but there'll be some. And of course the tip probably has to soak in Windex overnight. Sure, nothing's happening down there. And I'll let these soak. But beware, this is all part of the game. I bet you're not going to believe this, but I've even got 2 of them working. And this is the one with the real thin lines. The real thin one is working well now. That's 2 of them. I just can't believe it. That's 2. I ought to just keep this one. I'll put the cap on it so I know this is working. 4 inking working. Oh, if I can get 2 or 3 more of these working. If I go for 2 out of 6, I feel like the rest of them I don't give a damn. Let's see this guy here. Dead. Is this incredible? This one's got something coming out of it. Help, help, I need to know about pens. I need pens. Oh! Hey, this Ed Gallagher guy, he better send some pens here. Anyway, I'll work on these later. I'm going to let them soak overnight. I'm going out to get my wallpaper now, and that's it. I thought I'd get a little bit ahead here, but obviously not. Hey, this is funny. I just had, just a quick minute here. Just got back from the store. I had some, where the hell's the label? I had some of this Cook and Done house paint mixed up, special color, to match the wallpaper. We picked up our wallpaper today. Hey, take a minute. I got to tell you a great story here. Picked up the wallpaper, had to match the paint, and I told the guy, he's doing this with a computer. I says, when you hit that pigment button, I want more pigment in the paint. I want to be able to cover that molding. We got old shitty molding up there in one coat. He says, you can't put more pigment in the paint. I said, sure you can. You put the can there, you put the pigment in, and then you leave the can there and put the pigment in again. So we're going to have a test. This is house paint with double the amount. I can't believe it anyway. You got to be this wife beater too. Official OJ wife beater. So I got my wallpaper, I got my paint. I'm rocking and roll. I can't even put that back in the box. I'm ready. We're going to be starting this renovation soon. I'm itching. Now, believe it or not, I got a couple of these pens working. Actually, the whole deal was, and this is a good way to do it, I called somebody up who knows what the hell they're doing. And he said, take the pens, soak them in hot water, Take that water as hot as you can from the tap, soak them, which is what I'm going to do right now. Get out all the old ink. Surely this guy doesn't like planes, or he'd know. I could get him to come over here and do some stuff for me. But actually, he knows about this kind of stuff. Not interested in planes, but he knows about pens, and he said this will work every time. Hold them under hot water until you hear a click. Now I can feel that click. Keep running it until the water runs almost dry, almost clear. Now I just happen to know another thing. The last time Jeff Stifel bought a bunch of these pens, the sets were like on sale for half price, and I didn't even want to buy one. Now I go to the store and a set of these pens is like $90 or something, so it gives me some religion. Right, I'm going to pull this piece of the pen apart too. Clean this out. Fill it up with fresh ink. And let's see if we learned anything. This absolutely is the biggest pain in the ass. I would rather be mixing paint and not having the paint job come out the way I want. And this stuff makes me crazy. Imagine doing this for a living. Oh, hard to believe. Anyway, I'm going to go give this, I'm going to put some ink in this pen and give it a try. Now, Joe told me another thing to do here is not to grab the tip of this with a pair of pliers like I've been doing. Makes sense. Since I've been using a wheel, there's a little wheel comes in with the pen kit. Oh, it's still a pain in the ass. Oh, this is still more work than I'm happy with. Give me paint or give me death. Alright, get this rinsed off. Now, if you can hear that little click, it means the ball is working. Let me clean this off. Oh, what a mess. This might be one of the ones I busted up with that, trying to get the pliers off. Dudley, you might have been right. Go give this a test. There's another, I don't know, not a trick, but try to get some of that ink down in the tip. Oh my God, Joe, you know your stuff. I can't believe it. See, you can learn, here's a point here, I don't know, it's not a good point, but you can learn from people that, you know, this guy has no interest in airplanes, and yet he knows about pens. I'm so impressed. Anyway, this works like a charm. Alan Beers, be my guest, man. That's a tip worth it. Well, these pens are $17 a piece right now. I got 6 of them here. It's over $100 worth of pens, and if they dry up. Now, believe it or not, one of the things I learned from this is when I'm done inking this plane, I'm going to take these pens and soak them in water, take some compressed air, blow it all out, do just what Joey suggested. And I hope I never have to go through this again. I'm going to clean all these pens now. And I'm ready. Tomorrow is going to be ink day. We're going to do some inking. So, we'll see you then. It's unbelievable what a pain in the ass this is. I hate ink. Now, before you lay out any ink job, Steve Busso used to be excellent at doing this. He would take a little scale model of the Kestrel or of the Cardinal or of whatever it was, and he would lay out the panel lines in a drawing. Now, Mike Rogers does this too. Mike lays out every ink line, every rivet on a little drawing before he actually does it. Now, I don't really have to do that. I don't really want to spend the time right now because of all the other renovations, but you can see that one of the things I want to point out here, these panel lines, this is on a Spitfire, and these panel lines, a lot of them are different. So we really, because we're doing a fantasy plane, we can pick any set of ink lines we want. But see, there are some constants now. Almost everyone has, let's just see if they all have that. No, they don't. But you can pick out whatever you think the rudder lines should look like, these panel lines, the lines behind a turtle deck, whatever. And one of the things we have that's kind of real neat is we have a whole, now I got all 7 of these pens working. Believe me, what a horror show. Got all of the pens working and the thicknesses of the lines. Now, one of the things you can always do, you can vary the main lines as being heavy. Now, see, these are Zeus fittings here. We can simulate them. Some of the light panel lines you can do, let's say in a smaller pen, a 6.0, a 5.0, a 4.5. The bigger the number,
obviously the wider the line. So we have a lot of choices. You look at how many different rudders there are on Spitfires and how many different, this one has no. We have a lot of choices here, so we can pretty much go right down the line, and I'll keep this book handy. This is an excellent reference book. So I have a little idea I want to lay. Number one, like with the heaviest pen I have, lay this line out, which all of them have. This is the cowl forward line. This is actually the firewall. Then there's a top line. So this in effect cuts the top apart, and this is a panel they can take off to access the engine. And of course the bottom one, which lucky for us, our cowling and this brake line look almost identical. Not exactly, but almost. So we'll be able maybe to use the cowling line as one of the ink lines, but laying it out in your mind is always a good idea before you actually start. In some of the various wing, you can see where they have reinforcements around the aileron hinges, where they have gun blisters, various access panels where they get in to check things, cable adjustments and stuff. Knowing what the real airplane looked like is going to be a big advantage here. And now here's the wing drawing, and I'm referencing off of this, looking at the blisters. I don't see any reasonable way we can do this since our landing gear have further spread, but the radiator attachment points, all the hard points here, the access panels, and it even shows the top of the wing as being, this would be nice. We can put one straight line with a heavy pen. There's a lot of choices here, and nothing to me looks dumber in the whole world than some of these people that just put an ink line here and there in a box. And you know why I know it's dumb? Because I used to do it. I used to go buy a thing for architecture, and here'd be a couch, here'd be a toilet, here'd be a septic tank, here'd be something of Big Jim's belt buckle or something, and then connect all the dots, and it looks so terrible. Knowing what a real airplane looks like is a big help. It'll always have a break point on the firewall, always have a top access, no matter what it is, P-51, whatever. Hatch lines, I want to simulate Zeus fittings. I want to make up a little template for Zeus fittings. This is not something I want to crank out in one work session. This is probably going to entail a lot of work, maybe more than I'm really willing to put up with. But the bottom line is, when I'm done, I want to have something that's just a little bit nicer than, the average ironing board. There's a close-up view of some of the little hatches and trim tabs, the rib spacing, access panels. The later model Spitz. Again, this is very easy to do to simulate that cowl line. Actually, if I wasn't looking for the maximum, if this was more of a scale plane, I would have used this as the cowl part line. The only reason is I wanted to keep it a less of an angle. It runs through the exhaust and the needle valve, so that's an advantage. And also, it'll definitely be more rigid in the nose section, the way I have it. This would be like a Bombay door. And always, the smaller of a cowling you can make, the better. This has the real nice rudder, all the rib bays, the panel. Again, laying out the ink, you just don't want to start putting shit on a wing and without making it look realistic, and especially this one, I'd like to combine and make this ink pattern as real, if I possibly can, as realistic as possible. Well, look at a Seafire here. I just love this, how all the Zeus fittings around the whole thing. Another nice one. Joe, I know, likes these big blisters. That's for the Griffin engine. The one's fitted with a Griffin engine. More details, more rudders, more ideas. So there's just a lot to think about before we actually ever lay a pen onto a paper. Now today we had more excitement. There's never an end here in this shop. My wife called me up. There was a tremendous train crash in Secaucus, the town she works in and where we used to live. Over 150 people hurt. Some people killed, 2 or 3 people killed, and I'm going to go down there and see if I can be of any help. She's going to be at work all night, of course, coordinate an ambulance stuff, and I'm sure George is down there already, so we're not going to get much done here. But I do want to do a little testing on the ink. The next time I get to do a session, I want to get, and maybe we'll get one tonight, I want to get some
testing on the small parts, get my ink technique. I got all those pens working, by the way. What a horror. My hands are still black. I want to get some of the ink started, and we're basically, depending on how many delays, we're ready to start the bedroom. We got to check this thing out with the ambulances and the fire engines, and everything's just chaotic. So when I get back later, I'm going to check out these pens. I got them all working. It's hard to believe. Tonight I'm finally going to get some work on this ink. Well, I saw on a TV, been just following this disaster in Sea Caucus, and of course Karen is directly involved in it, but this thing with Portland, holy mackerel. I'm going to have to drop a little note to some of my friends that live out in Portland. It looks like the whole city's underwater. Well, we've all had a rough winter. I know all over the country people just say it's terrible. Anyway, I want to start tonight. I only have a little bit of time. I'm going to get to do a little playing with my ink pens. First thing, boy, I have done this many times. I have gone and put something flat on the table and had a little dot of hot stuff, and you press down doing your ink work, and you get a little dent. So I want to be real sure the table's perfectly clean, no dents. Get some paper on there for a pad, and get ready to start laying out some ink. Now it's good to always start, of course, on the bottom. Even if you screw this up, it won't be a problem. Hey, by the way, this is another quick thought. Because we already have one coat of clear on here, if you don't have any clear, that ink really tends to get into the pigmented paint if it's chalky. So I'm really thinking here's even another advantage while we're inking it. I want to just touch this with 600 paper and then wipe it with M600 first, the first step. Okay, just a little defuzzing here. And it's lucky that we have this. Of course, if you have any, I got some little spit marks from the gun there. Any little spit marks you can get out now. You don't want to be sanding if you don't have a coat of clear on it. If it's raw, or let's say you just have, especially if you have the pigmented paint, you want to just be real careful. Best if you have that coat of clear on. I think that's going to help. Always remember that it's a way you should think about things in general. Always practice on a part you could repaint easily. Practice on the bottom first. And the same thing, by the way, you think you're going to just pick up a pen, boom, and everything will be perfect. It takes a little while. First off, I'm going to have to make some special templates. Second thing is I have not inked the plane in a year, so it's going to take some time for me to get my little hands ready and ready to go and whatever. The first thing I always try to get ready, get all my stuff ready. Have some Q-tips ready, some alcohol, there's isopropyl alcohol. Get a little pad where you can start to lay the pen out. Get the pen to start flowing, so if there's any old ink in the tip, or in this case, a couple of shakes of the pen, get it flowing. Get some nice lines started. And then I have to make up a template. The first thing I want to do is make up a template for the elevator trim tab so that all four of them will be exactly the same. I want to get a couple of these pens, a wide one and a thin one, flowing before I even start. Get the various thicknesses of lines so I can first obviously make the line thin, and then if it doesn't work right, you can thicken it up. Now over the years I've accumulated, more bullshit here, all of these drafting templates. Some of them have a little notch in them, so that you don't need to lay tape on the side you're not going to use. But if you don't, you can't lay this flat onto a thing and ink it. The ink walks underneath. You have to have a couple pieces of tape a little bit away from the edge, and the purpose of that is the ink doesn't run underneath. So no matter what you do, you either have to buy templates. These are all patterns from all Cardinals and who the hell knows what. Let's see if I can show this really up close. This has that little relief. If you have templates with that little relief, you'll be in good shape. But if not, you've got to put it in there. Now, I also have some real nice flexible rules. You see I put tape on them just a little bit in. This is one that Bob Martin set in. I have a whole template, and You really don't need this many things. This is like a lifetime supply. Have some crazy lettering things, and some of these that have angles on them, and I even have more than these if I looked around. But you really don't need this many. This is certainly enough. But you want to practice if you've never done this before, and I'm assuming some of the people that want this information, you know, have never inked a plane, and they need this information to get a... The first time it's not too frustrating. And save all your old templates in one box. Well, one of the things I'm real good at, and I know I am, I have a big ego problem, number one. I know how to get things organized. These are all my letter sets, and you can see a lifetime supply of doing this. I have done a million letter sets. I have my touch-up box organized, brushes, caps, my templates, everything with ink and pen, so that every type of work that I do is all in one box. And of course, all the boxes have their own storage drawers. So if you have an old dresser, might I suggest this is what you'd want to do. Is you're going to go do ink, you get the box with all the inking stuff, boom, boom, you have all the templates in. It's very frustrating to go out and like I did yesterday, run out of rubber cement, run out of this, we can't find this, can't find that. This is a good investment. Get all your inking stuff into one drawer. All your extra rulers in a spot. In this case, hey, I get a piece of paper taped down, so I'm working off a clean, flat surface. Get all my stuff in case I make a boo-boo. I got alcohol, clean Q-tips, extra pens, everything within my reach, my book with all the little designs in them. And now the first thing I want to do is make up a little scale, roughly to scale, a little template. A lot of the stuff I'm doing, I'm going to make custom templating, but you don't have to if you have those green templates. You can, or if you're doing an ironing board stunt ship, you don't have to worry. You can just go use, things at random. But for a Spitfire or for a scale plane, I'd like to have it somewhat looking like a scale, length, width, and height, and that's why I have the book. Now I can look at this and see this is roughly 1/3 the span, and I can interpolate this roughly to get a number so I can make up a template for that little tab. And this way the top, the bottom, everything will be equal. Well, one of the best materials to use for this is good old-fashioned 64th plywood scraps. Again, I'm looking at my book, trying to just picture this in my eye, how big this should be. I'll cut this out with a scissor to dress the edges off and put tape on it, and I'll have a pattern here. Now, any little pattern you make, kind of simple. You really don't have to make these fancy, you just need to get the tape up to within maybe a 16th of the edge. I like to play it real safe and use 3 layers of tape. Sometimes you could get away with less, but 3 layers of tape will get you in the ballpark. And then of course I'll do a little practice on my paper. A little more work to do this, but of course if you're doing, once you make these patterns up, there's nothing to keep you, let's say you do your first plane and it's an SV11. You make up all the templates for the ink lines. Well, you could put them all in an envelope or a bag and use them all on your second plane. It isn't going to matter. Once you have a template for everything, you're home free all. And what I'll do is I'll mark each one what it is. Let me get the little sanding block. I like to dress the edges off just so ink doesn't stick. What happens if you get a drop of ink here, it's going to smear and everything. And I can make a little I'll put a little note on here what exactly this piece is. Now I'm holding it parallel to the second hinge. I'm trying to hold the pen as vertical as possible and not press down any harder than I have to. Now it helps me a lot when I'm doing ink to have one finger on the table. I always try to rest palm of my hand or one finger on something. If you hold a pen in midair, you can't hold it steady. So like an artist, if you can get the palm of your hand or a finger down, they even have this pinky down. Now a lot of times it's a good idea. This is a .70 pen. When you get to a corner, you don't want to go
flying off the corner. That's a problem. Now, here's what will happen. Some of the things you can screw up. If you go to try to move the template and you walk it through the ink, yuck, you got to smear. So I kind of just sit after each ink line, let it go. You notice I have a little bit of the tape hanging off the back so my finger sticks to it, and I can kind of pick it up or slide it out directly out the back without smearing the ink. Now, I want to do this up on a macro lens. And now notice how the corner has a rounded edge because I used a wide pen. Now what I have to do is get the thinnest pen that I have and by hand point in that corner. The inside corner is fine. I want to point in the outside corner. Let's just get how close I can get this on a macro lens. That's a little detail. It really adds a nice touch. It adds that quality touch without being a lot of extra work. Now I call this operation, for me anyway, I call it pointing. Trying to get all the points just nice. It's difficult if you have grease on your hands, so I try to wash my hands every so often. My hands are pretty beat up from working outside, but you try not to have dirt and grit all over your hands. And I have to do this, I have to wear my glasses, of course. Needless to say, and I just point this by hand. Again, it doesn't take a lot of practice. I try to get the corners pointy. Now Bob Martens also sent me this ruler that has a cork backing. The idea of the cork backing is the ruler doesn't slip and slide as easily. So what happens here is, what I want to do is, supposing I want to true this edge up, if I have a little problem in the edge, this will get a nice grip on, and I can use the real thin point pen. And I suggest if you go out, if you're going to ink a plane and do it seriously, buy a set of pens. And what I can do here, and I'm just doing this as an example, it really doesn't have to be done. The other pen leaves a nice enough line, but I want to get an example of something that's easy to do, because I'm obviously not going to put every ink line on the plane on the tape. If you see how to do one of these deals, I think you can figure the rest. Oops, I just let the ruler slip. Yeah, I think you can figure the rest out. Now, even if it slips a little bit, you just make this line just a taste longer, taste wider. Nobody will ever know. By the way, that's why you do the bottom first. Go right up into the corner. Now, you obviously have to work your way around the back to make this realistic. I like to use the thinnest pen possible to get that line around the back. Thinnest pen, this is what the hell is it, a 2.5, 0.25. This gives me a reference for lining up the template on the top of the wing. And of course, a little patience here. You don't want to have the ink wet when you go and put the template back on the other side. I've done that already too, is I've had this not dry yet, and I just go plop, and that's the end of it. So a good practice is I'll go get the other elevator off the plane, and I'll do both at the same time. So while one is kind of drying, I could be working on the other one. A hair dryer is okay if you want to fan it or hair dryer it or what, but the ink generally takes a minute or two to really dry to the touch. And then as soon as I get one part done, I'll shoot a coat of clear right on the edge. Just over the ink line, so it'll protect it. If I get by with some grease on my hand or whatever, it won't smear. Another trick that I haven't used, I haven't even tried it in a long time, is if you have any ink that you don't get nice true lines, rub talcum powder. Sand the plane with talcum powder, wipe it all off, and usually that'll pick up any of the grease or oil. But because we have Flex Oil and fisheye in the paint, you hope, cross your fingers, you hope we're going to get nice lines for the whole plane. Now as you flip it over, what I want to extend my reference points just a little bit more, because I want this, when you look from the very edge, that it's an exactly, I don't want to have one lower and one, off to the side. course, if you go back through an incline the second time, any little irregularities or whatever will come right out. Okay, I want to get the other elevator now, and of course make a mirror image of this. This way I can flip-flop. Another one of my theories is flip-flop. So one is always drying, and you can be working on the other one. You get good production that way. Now, I'm not really geared up here the way this is set up to work on anything but the little parts, but just by doing these little parts, I can get myself a little more comfortable with the rulers and the ink and all little things, and look through the book and get some ideas how much detail I want to put on this. Because of course you can always go right to the point where you put clear on it. You can go back with the alcohol. You can get most of it off. I wouldn't say you'll get it all off, but you'll get a fair chance of if you get it off before it dries. Alcohol and Q-tips, that's your best bet that I know of. See, one of the things I remember I've used from time to time is this router pad. And there's nothing but a piece of rubber, really. I want to find which side is the cleanest. And what this router pad does, I guess during all application, not only when you're inking, make sure that's dry, it holds the piece in place for you. So this is another handy thing when you're inking. When you see a plane that's really beautifully inked, you know, and I certainly don't lay claim to any kind of title best inker in the world. That's adequate would be okay. But there's always a lot of little tricks. There's a lot of little things that'll make it easy for you. Not going to make it that it'll go by itself. It'll make it easier. This little router pad, having a table clean, a lot of little things can go ahead and help you make the most out of it. I'm just cleaning this pad. This thing's been sitting in a closet for a long time. Little M600. Good for cleaning everything. You don't want anything, and of course you don't want any little globs of glue or anything on here. Just junk. Okay. Now we're ready to do the mate to this. Now what I can do is lay them back to back. I can put one reference line here and then actually lay the tab out for my second reference line. As long as I get the first one, there'll be mirror images. Give me the real thin pen here. Why don't I have this memorized yet? See, this is why you do all this practicing, because it makes you crazy after a while. That gives me my reference line. Now I know if I lay that tab out, it's going to work perfect. It's going to be exactly in the right spot. Now the router pad really does help a lot. I try to get my finger down on the part for support. And go right back through the same incline, kind of grinding it into position, but not pushing down enough that I get a groove here. I don't want to have a dent. Now, while this one, well, I can't do it now. I have one here. There's some ink lines out at the tip. I want to make a template for that too. Now, even now I can spot, because I've been looking at these parts over and over, closer and closer, that handy little touch-up kit up there, and I can just get, now in this case there was some spots where the paint was thin in the hinge pockets, but any little thing you can correct now is one less thing you're going to have as a flaw in the final airplane. And obviously what we're shooting for here is the minimum or none. Now looking at the book, there's some detail out at the tip that because we've got a different shape at that corner, it'll not be practical to even try to put that in. I'm trying to think of a way I can put that in, but anyway, I have to think about that. That may or may not come out later. Let's take a look at the rudder. Maybe we can get here's a nice selection of rudder details. We can come up with some nice rudder detail here. Now I started the rudder by laying out the tab almost identically to to the elevators. The elevators are ready for the clear. And when you look at each individual part real close, you always can find little spots to touch up the paint or get rid of a little scratch or something that's on here. Try to get them as nice as possible. Now you say you can't find a good use for all these old videos you have laying around. So I need to be able to spot this, and this will let this sit down flat. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to line that up. I can do the same thing with the rudder tab up here. Line it up. Yeah, you son of a gun, don't you move. Okay, one of the things, now these lines are a .80. I want to do some lines in .60. I want to vary the thickness of the lines. It makes it look a lot more interesting than if you just do all the lines in one thickness. I measured out and trying to simulate some of what's on these rudders without making it too crazy. But what I need to do is get up on each side about 3/16 of an inch, and I want to put the ruler. This is the ruler that has the cork backing. But I need to hold it. Now it's going to be very difficult, and you'll find this out when you try to draw lines on the edge of things. See, I can't get, because of this, I can't get into the position I want. So that I can line this up and watch. This is a really good trick. I take an acetone can. That'll hold one end down. I need another can here. Oh, some videos. We would find some use for all these old videos. Anyway, I can see that I have that pretty well in position. Now check this out. This is beautiful. I don't even need to hold the part. See, most of the problem that you have inking a plane is getting the plane held into position. But making these T-connections is difficult. And of course, the most difficult thing is to wrap a line around the end and have them both meet. So now with that line, obviously, let it dry a second or two. Now here's just some of in the development of the Spitfire, some of the various, this is the rudder that we're using, by the way. And I want to have these lines on here. They simulate the ribs because, of course, this was built up. But I don't want to have them, you know, like in a way that this really isn't ribs. So I don't want to have this broken line here. That doesn't do anything for me. So I'm going to pretty much combine this action with this action. And, of course, the laced one has no, the Spitfire has none. Anyway, this is what we have. We have an 80 line. There's a .80 and a .60. See how nice it looks? This really does look. It adds some interest to it, and especially the way these dark lines look going over the dark camo color. Now we're going to try to wrap this line around, so what I'll do is, just like I did the other trim tabs, is wrap that around a little bit, use that for alignment, put my cross piece on and that, and then I'll have both sides of this simulated exactly the same. Now I want to simulate those ribs, so two of the things I did, I took a thin machinist ruler and a thick one, of course both from Bob Martin's, and I want to look at if it looks more realistic to have the wide ribs. Yeah, it looks better with the wide. Now what I want to do is I want to switch to even a thinner ink line. This is a 6.0. I want to see what else I have in inventory here, and of course I'm down to having almost no pens. A 35, that's going to be too thin. What I really wish I had was a 5.0, but I don't. Let me try this, and this is just... See, if you put a thin line on, you can always make it thicker. Easiest thing in the world. Now I want to make these ribs look like they're 90 degrees. So I can reference off of the top. And just run right off the edge.
Yeah, now I have a 6.0 and what the hell is this, a 3.5, okay. Now, the idea of using a machinist ruler, once that dries, I can go to the next one, use this as my parallel edge, and it will be, once I get the first one set on the other side, they'll all be equal. You can make it a little, easier to do. On the other side will be a lot easier because I won't have to deal with this thing being up on the videotapes. Kind of a pain in the ass. Now I thought of a way of even beating this system. I could cut off a piece of that router pad or put a hole in it so that I could put the router pad up over this and drop this in if I wanted to be a little more aggressive about this. I think this will be the only piece I have to deal with like this. But believe me when I tell you, that's half of doing good ink work is just getting everything in position so you can ink it. Inking it is really not a big deal once you have everything in position. And it's really a big help if you can get one of your friends to come over and help you. Now, of course, all my friends, they come over when they need something done, not when I need help. Sorry, Jimmy. Now, actually, everybody's busy today. And I actually enjoy the challenge of trying to do things on my own, not depending on other people to help.
It kind of simulates what's in the book, I guess, to some degree. It's certainly not a hodgepodge of things that wouldn't exist, of boxes and circles and stuff. So, obviously, I'll flip this over and do the other side with the same size pen. And I've got 3 different thicknesses of ink lines on here, so I think it's kind of looking a little bit like what I had in mind.
Now, one of the things, I guess, no matter how careful you're going to wind up with is a little bit of ink. In other words, here's the 2 lines come together, and the line will be like that. And you want to get that little piece of ink off. So what I do, I try to get a brand new X-Acto blade and just pick away at that corner little by little. I'll do some of these on a macro lens when I have some that I can't get this thing jigged into position. And there's one down here. But any of those little, I call them tails. It looks like a little tail of ink that doesn't want to just sit where it should. That's a good way to handle it. Now here's a thing you run into all the time is I've got all the bars going down, the simulated ribs, and this horn is in the way. I want to pick up that thickness. So what I'm going to do is just transpose that thickness over here, put a dot, one little ink dot is all you need, and then I can work it off this way. Actually, I can pick up the line this way too, get 2 dots, so it'll be perfectly parallel too. So a lot of this stuff you have to invent as you go along. You have to make templates and invent things, and I guess that's part of the challenge. But it's a big part of the challenge. If this was easy, believe me, everybody'd be doing this. So I'm going to run out, get a coat of clear on this, and that'll protect all the ink lines and the elevators, so this can be drying while I'm working on the next pieces. Because we only, at least for right now, only have to deal with this little tab. I'm just going to spray this area here and then get up and that selective finishing thing and try to get as much of these lines as possible and maybe the edge.
Now see what I mean by selective finishing? This is one of the reasons some people's planes, wind up weighing 7 ounces for the finish and some 25. Now see, I haven't put any out here, just over the ink line and over the edges and this edge here. That's all that I'll need now for this coat. I have a postcard here today from Andre Trudeau. I don't know how you say it, he's from Canada, of course. He was one of the guys who was here during the stunt film and sent a Spitfire postcard. Hey, you never have too many. Look at these. I've been noticing the squadron named Don. Yeah, Don D. Don. Anyway, Andre, we appreciate it. A nice Spitfire picture. I'll put that up on a wall with the rest of my collection. Never have too many Spitfire pictures.
Now, this is some pictures I got from Tom Dixon in today's mail, and he's showing off this is his new plane. It was second at the King Orange. There's a real nice picture of the nose section and the pilot. Really nice paint job, too. Tom laid him off for, I'm reading this off, 13.5 Y&O and Russian spinner, which I'll have in stock soon, I hope. I'm going to order some from Tom today. Small pictures of the plane. This is a copy of Kalashnikov's World Champion plane, the one that won the 88 World Championships. Pretty close copy. Looks like the only difference I see is the chipmunk canopy. Really nice paint job too. The motor is a Vono Breathe 60, 650 square inches. I'm just reading some more to note. This is a bushing ABC motor. Appreciate the pictures and the information from Tom. Tom is going to be checking out some Spitfire videos for some molding information. So we'll see if he can pick up anything useful off of the tapes. Appreciate the pictures, Tom. Now I'm checking through the book here. I want to get some ideas of what I want to use, what I want to do in terms of these flaps. There's several wing drawings in here. And I have more than enough choices, so why don't you just make a decision here and then we can lay out the flaps. Seems like the pens have been behaving. So far, so good. Yeah, I never trust these goddamn pens. These things can turn on you in a minute. Okay. And one thing I always use, whenever I have black paint ending at an edge, I can always run a ruler down the edge and get a really perfect line. But I want to do that after I get a little more clear on here. This really doesn't have enough clear to do that. But then just before I put the real clear on, I'll really get all of the black to white edges inked down. So there'll be a perfect razor edge on each one. Now there's so many choices for wings and flaps and everything. I'm just going to make a kind of concoction of my own here, copying from 2 or 3 of the different wing plan forms. Now what's handy here is I wanted to take one of these transparent so I could see through and line up the corners. Yeah, I'm trying to do this with a relatively wide pen. This is a 1.0. I want to get a bold line. This is supposed to be where an aileron would be, I guess. As it always is, the biggest pain in the neck is biggest pain in the neck is getting the lines wrapped around the edges of the flap and getting them all to match up and made up. Now that's basically what the aileron would be on a real Spitfire, and I want to, after this dries, I'm going to make a template for the hinges. There's some kind of unique looking hinges in there, but what I'm going to do is get one flap going and get the other one, where the hell is it, over here. Get the other one going so I can be working on one while one is drying. I could be working on the other one. Yeah. Hope if I had the right pen. Now, like all semi-scale stuff, this is really an interpolation. We can't use a scale ink line on a wing that isn't a scale size and shape. And so I'm trying to do things in proportion and kind of do interpolation. Now this is just a typical thing. You can make a correction. If you see right here that ink hit a little bit of a high spot or a whatever, if you let it dry, just take an X-Acto blade and just scrape real easy. Pick it up as you go. You can get that perfect. Now it's always hard to get nice corners. I'm trying to do this through macro lens, so bear with me. Oops. But again, if you overdo it, let the ink dry and you can just kind of get it right in position. Just a few minutes ago, Karen got home from that train wreck. So I don't think we have much. I'm going to try to finish up the flaps, and that's going to be it for tonight. Anyway, I want to lay this out. Now I have the edges wrapped around. If you don't wrap them around, you'll never get them right. Even though you think they're going to be perfect, the best thing is you got to wrap them around. And when they don't line up, boy, does it look terrible from the, from the point of view if you look at the plane and here's this. Again, I've been having a lot of luck with this big 1.0 pen. A lot of interpolation here. There's a lot of things you just need to, I guess fudge is the right word. And being able to fix the little mistakes you come across, even more important. Because as always, if you can fix the mistakes, you don't have to have any anxiety about if there's something not a little not perfect, and you can fix it, who cares? Joe, of course, is one of those people that gets perfect ink work every time, so I really look forward to seeing his plane inked up. His, I'm sure, will have the perfect, if nothing else, it'll have the perfect ink work, perfect paint and perfect ink work. Now, even though this doesn't really have enough clear on it, some of these edges are really rough. And that really does put a nice little razor edge touch on. Now Jimmy Cassell had the best trick I ever saw with ink. He would do all his trim work and then go and buy a pen with like the biggest pen I have is a 1.0. He'd buy one that was like twice as wide. And he'd outline all his trim with these big thick ink lines, and it was like using big thick molding on an old Victorian house. But you know what? The dummies at the Nats that watch this and record this stuff, they never knew it. He was getting away with murder. The plane was really not that good, and he knows it, and I've told him. Lose the big fat ink lines, but you know what? He won and I didn't, so who had the last laugh? Any little imperfections, you just wait till they dry, get that razor, and just pick them right out before you put the clear on. Now I am just being super fussy about looking around and trying to get this right. And when you do a touch-up, always use the smallest pen you have in your box. I guess that's pretty good. I see these are actually aileron hinge supports. And I want to try to simulate them if I can. Then make up a little pattern, and then I'll using a thinner pen so that actually the bold outlines are the biggest pen, and then everything else is in a smaller, thinner pen. Now I want to put a real nice hole in 64th plywood, so what I did, I just drilled a hole. Of course the edge is all ratty. Then I have that tool that Uwe Degner sent. I can just grind the rest of it in real slowly, and I'll get a nice edge on that hole. Just like doing the cockpit detail, you get a real nice hole. Now I'll trace out the shape I want and then put the tape underneath it. That's really a good trick, by the way. Wow,
Now I made this little pattern up, and of course one way to easily make this pattern up is to fold a piece of paper so you have the two angles symmetrical. I made a little line on here so I know where I can reference off for my hinges. And I'm doing this is pretty much like an eyeball job, just to, number 60 pen, just to simulate roughly where these are in the real plane. And of course, a lot of this is just interpolation because we don't have a real scale wing. You can actually make any shape, save all your scraps of 64 plywood. These actually are bigger than scale, but I'm trying to pick up the details that I can see in here, like that, and emphasize it because, again, this is not a scale model, this is an interpolation of a scale model. I just happen to have one here that kind of simulates the other half of the hinge, and it's not on center, so I have to figure this out. I don't want to do this. A little bit off center. Just one of those handy little tools to have with all the little details you might or might not be able to use. I'll try to simulate the same thing out on this side. Now, just one more tip. As you do smaller and smaller details, you want to use a thinner and thinner pen. Little details like this, if you try to use a .10 or 10 or a thick pen, they really don't come out detailed. You don't get the nice crispness. With a thin pen, this is what, a 2.5. This comes out real nice. These are obviously offset. This is probably the mount point on the real plane for the hinge. Always trying to hold the pen kind of vertical, because this is so thin it really comes out nice. The thinner the line you can make, of course, the nicer it'll come out. Now this one I have to interpolate. I can't fit the whole piece, so what I do is I'll try to get half of it, and then move this down, and that's as close to scale as I can reasonably get this. Again, you could probably be pretty liberal here and get away with having that overall illusion, that look. And there'll always be some little angle or corner that somebody will identify as, hey, that looks like a Spitfire. Even a Mustang, when I did the Red Baron, I tried to steal some things that looked like they belonged there, but they really didn't. And yet, from when a plane is out on the runway and it's sitting there, it definitely has that overall look that you're looking for.
Now I smeared that, leaning over to adjust the camera, and nobody has to know. And what you do, if you do smear it past where you want to, you just redo the incline now. And the first thing here is I want to square this corner off. I have a little tail on that one. And then I want to get 90s on all of these. I want to get this right up on there. And what you do, you work this end down toward the ruler. Just let it hit the ruler and walk over. Okay, we got the two flaps up to this point here. I have to decide now. One of the things Spitfire's had randomly, and every Spitfire picture has different layout, is these little access hatches. Randomly in places, and I see there's some up here, and I'd like to simulate some of them, and I have a tool for that. And they made them in two round and egg-shaped, and of course I have a tool for both from previous inking jobs. Now I'm just finishing up the flaps with some small details with these little boxes that kind of are in the, not exactly in the scale space, but they're close. Again, the thin pen so that it'll simulate. We have some variation in the line thickness. It'll make it look, I think, a little more realistic. Just finishing up these details here, and I'm going to get a coat of clear on this. And that's going to be it for tonight. Actually, this went pretty well. And the next time we get to work on this, it's going to be bedroom operation over the weekend. But the next time we get to come down here, we'll be working on the main frame and some more of the components. And then when we get all the inking done, of course the next step will be the electrosets. And if you just pick up a couple of these basic skills, I guess you can pick it up with your eyes. You don't even have to. You shut the sound off on the TV, you'd still pick it up. Now the secret is always, if you don't know how much, a little less is better than a lot. One line fewer than perfect is better than one line more than perfect. That's my feeling anyway. I'm going to put the clear on this, and that's the end of this session. Now it might be a couple days before I get to work on this again. But one of the good things is in the meantime I can be thinking about how I want to do this. I want to outline all this lettering. I want to somehow incorporate as many of the main inclines into this main frame as I can. I have some work I want to do on the radiators, and I have all those electrosets. So we're looking at a good couple more days of work on this when we get back to it.
Now, the Spitfire project, for all purposes now, is going to be sharing time with this bedroom renovation. Anybody that's ever bought a 100-year-old house knows what this is like. Wires all over the wallboard, big chips out of the plaster, cracks in the walls. And of course, what I anticipated here, this was really funny, I didn't know they still had the old ceiling, but you can see they had gold wallpaper under the ceiling here. I started ripping the ceiling down this morning. Holy mackerel, there's another ceiling. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to plaster it. No idea. But one of the things here I am going to be able to do, I'm going to spackle and sand till the cows come home. You can see all the holes in these walls. My God, it's a mess. Anybody has an old house, there's holes in the molding, holes everywhere. The things are all ratty and falling apart. And anyway, while we're doing that, of course, we have to live in the room. We have to cover things with drop cloths and shop vacs. And we're going to update the wiring, get a new light in here, get a new ceiling, new sheetrock. This will consume probably the next 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to only put a minute or two of this on from time to time. This is the last room in the house to be renovated. We've done 13 rooms so far, and this is the last one. Boy, when this is over, we're going to do a patio outside, and I will be so glad, believe me. So I got the ladder out, I got my toolbox out, and this is going to be a day of working on the bedroom. No Spitfire work today. End of day one, and the ceiling is on the floor in the bag. We filled up 20 garbage bags. A lot of fun, huh, Kat?
Oh, I loved it.
Let me tell you, this is why I married this woman. She's good at construction.
Sure, I'm the helper.
Look at this, boy. The sweeper. Oh, what a mess. I'll be glad when this day goes. Actually, today is my mother's birthday, and we have to pack it in now and go see my mother for a nice birthday party. But day one, like every day, day two, and I wound up getting this really neat guillotine saw, double miter saw. We got some pretty fancy moldings that are going to go in here eventually. And of course, Craig's in charge of all sheetrock screwing in. He's got his center line drawn. What a guy. Say hello.
How you doing?
Hello.
Who's that?
What used to be my beautiful train room is now turned into this shit room. Everything from the other room was in here. What a mess. Anyway, almost at the end of day two here. Sheetrock and a ceiling. Day four, and we got the first coat of spackle up on the ceiling. It's all drying. And tomorrow we'll try to get the second coat on and get some of the sanding done here. Get it start looking nice. Now, finally back down in the shop here. Little commentary here. As usual, things have fallen upon us. There's another snowstorm outside, and it looks like we're going to lose another day here. Good news, and this is something you can put right to use. Because of time management, all the spackle on the upstairs room is being cooked and dried out with the same heat in the house that's been drying out the finish on this guy. Now what I'm going to try to do, I went through the mail today, and there's several things to put on a video that I want to put in. Bill Zimmer sent in a whole bunch of Spitfire stuff. I'll use that as a title on the next tape. I got a real neat little tool from Larry Shoemaker, and I'm going to put this together and put this on the tape too. It's pretty much the same as the Walt Russell tool that we use. This one looks like a little bit more sophisticated version and has a little bit better finer tuning, but it's basically the same thing, and it's definitely a usable thing. By the way, Larry's been watching all of these videos and checking it out, and he's very excited about building a new plane and everything, which obviously is the purpose of the videos. So that's another new thing. But there's a cool thing I wanted to mention. Now everybody that's watched this for years and years know I make little Christmas ornaments every year with all the Midley's plane and whoever's plane.
Today is Carlos Serra's birthday. It's Valentine's Day. And what I did, Carlos, of course, just moved. He's in a new house, and he doesn't really have a place to work yet, and he's getting a little itchy to build. So we made a little surprise party for him. He doesn't know we're having a birthday party tonight at one of our favorite restaurants. And we're going there with the idea in mind it's Valentine's Day, and on the dessert, I'm going to have the waiter put this little, I'm going to write Happy Birthday Carlos on this little plane. But it's a cute little thing you can do, you know, if you have some friends in a hobby like Carlos that are just jewels, and you want to make a little thing out of a piece of scrap plywood or Christmas ornaments, that's cool too. But that's not what the video is about, and that's not what we're doing. It's about ink lining, and what I want to do, I'm going to try to get a little wet sanding on this because we have clear on it, get this smoothed out a little bit, and I have to jig this up so the plane is laying on its side, and I'll take a ruler and I want to go around all these edges, outline all the edges and try to clean that up. I really don't have a full day to work on this, but thanks to the snow outside. But I'll try to get some of that ink work done, and of course try to get as much of it on this tape as possible. And whatever doesn't fit, we'll get on the next one. Then we want to get into, and we're going to get into it, into some lecture sets, and I did buy them already, and then of course the final clear. But there's a very good point here is when you have a project like we're working on that bedroom now, one of the things I really try to do, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, is do the flip-flop. Work on a bedroom one day, work on a plane one day. Now the advantage of that is the clear on this has dried up the last 3 or 4 days by the heating vent. This will sand like butter now when I go to sand it. It's beautiful. It's always nice to let time in between coats of dope dry. When you go to ink soft paint, I purposely wanted this to dry a little bit more than normal. These edges don't jump right off. They kind of get mushy and slushy, and when the paint is hard like this, boy, you can just knock that edge right down, get in there with a pen and like Zorro and put the lines on. Anyway, so without wasting any more time, let me get this jigged up and try to get some ink on it today anyway. By the way, more on this later. This is just something that came in the mail, but this is the first prototype set of laser cut ribs. And boy, I tell you, I went through these last night. I laid them up on Busso's plans, and these are so accurate, it's disgusting. And I know Busso made that from a real set of ribs that I use, so I know it's real accurate. All the reinforcements, all the ribs. More is coming on this week. I'm going to get the fuse sides and the blocks and everything I'll have. Before the end of the week, the first prototype kit will be going out of here. Uh-oh, right here, President Nixon. Let me go see what Nixon wants. After that call, it's unbelievable how many President Nixons there are in the world. Anyway, now that I've saved the world from total destruction again, this is an important point. I want to show this on the video. If you somehow, now I used to do this in my lap, and boy, was it ever a hit and miss proposition. It was bullshit, in fact. Now I have this system here that I've done on a couple of other people's planes when I've inked them. When we did Jimmy's plane, we used this. This system here just seems to be the ticket. I have just enough towels on the table. Now let me walk around here. Some of the things you want to do if you use this, it's always nice if you have a helper, but you want to wrap the towels around the edge so you don't chew up the leading edge, of course. That's number one. You want to wrap a couple of blankets if you have a chair. In this case, this is an old stool that some squirrel took a bite out of or whatever. Anyway, having the plane in this position, now I can lay out all my pens, all my templates, everything over here, and I can sand that one side at a time, ink it, of course, let it dry, then flip it over and do the other side. But the biggest problem with inking a plane is getting it held in position, and number two, getting somebody or some system to hold the ruler or whatever you're going to use to draw the lines in place. Now, it seems like this is not a big deal. Well, until you go to ink a plane on your own in your lap or try to hold it upside down or sideways or anything, if you can get the surface that you're going to work on to be perfectly flat and horizontal, you are going to be so far ahead of the game, it's unbelievable. So without further ado, you can see how much I want to go around all the letters and everything here. Having it in this position, I'll just work in a standing mode, which I prefer anyway, and hope I can at least get this done today. I just want to do the minimum. The idea of scuffing it up is to break the edge. Get that little high point off of there if possible. And that allows the ink to sit down nice and flat. And believe me, without even realizing it, putting that coat of clear on here is really a big help now, because if I was doing this without clear, I'd be picking up little spots of yellow and black and white and take a chance on fading in all these edges. Ink is the biggest. Ink is like molding. And by the way, we're ready to do the molding on the upstairs bedroom. Tomorrow George is going to take a day off of his project. And we have that compound miter saw, but boy, what a beautiful tool that is. Anyway, I'm going to try my hand at doing some Victorian molding up there. But right now I want to do Victorian ink lining. Now, any lettering, even if you do the lettering on the wing, if you can outline it with ink, it'll look so perfect. The edges never really come out perfect, even at least on my jobs they don't. And the ink really adds a nice final touch, like a picture frame, a molding, whatever. Now, I'm trying not to use M600 here. I don't want it to drip around and get the blanket all gizzed up. So I'll just sacrifice a few sheets of 600, then clean it with M600. And the idea just to break down as much as you can of the edge. By the way, I haven't stopped the touch-up process. Every time I've worked on this, I've done little touch-ups. And I hope I've covered most of my bases here. Okay, I don't want to sand off all the clear, but even if I go through, I can touch up. Okay, just clean this up with M600, let it dry, and I'll be ready to do one side. Having it in this position, I've tried to ink things on side, on angles. In the old shop where we had no room, I've tried hanging it from the readouts, putting it in my lap. This is really the best way. If you only get one thing off of this tape, this will save you a lot of aggravation. Now, another little trick I do, I clean my hands real good with soap and water, and I try to take some M600, get whatever from snow shoveling and running snow blowers and everything this morning. My hands are kind of gritty. And I'll get the pen started and get a nice straight edge and get started on this. Now, I tried to get my pen working off camera here. Of course, I haven't really succeeded. If possible, I like to use a small template here because I don't want to keep bumping into myself. Now I'm trying, I want to see how this is going to look with a 6.0 pen. And the nice thing about having a clear ruler is you can see where the lines will begin and end. Gives you a little bit better of a reference than a solid steel ruler in this case. Again, if you mess up, you only can really see that. So here it is. It's a year since I used this pen, and half of them, either the ink is dried up or something's crazy's happened. And this is probably, of all the steps to building a plane, this is the one I don't like. In fact, I can't even open this damn thing up here. This is one of the steps I dread, is having to clean the pens, load them, put the ink in, and I gotta get pliers and open this up. Now, Lou Dutko used to be a professional draftsman, engineer, some kind of technician where he used these kind of pens all day in his job, and he used to tell me something. I didn't believe it back then, but I believe it now. He said, build a plane, go buy some new pens, 2 or 3 new pens. At the end of the job, don't even save them, throw them away. And I don't know that he's right, but there sure isn't much of a case against that. Now, if you've never inked a plane before, let me get this thing. You want to I'll just do one pen on camera. You got to make sure that each, I just bought brand new ink too. Of course, I didn't buy brand new rubber cement. Filling these pens up can be a royal pain in the ass. You almost always get ink on you. It's almost guaranteed. You want to have some alcohol around, Q-tips, rags, alcohol to take off. Obviously, some of this gets on your hands no matter what you do. And I've been so careful so many times, and I still make a mess. I'm sure this is probably the one part of building a plane that I really wish, like, I could have this slave that would come over, the drafting slave come over and ink my plane. And yet people like Busso, look at this all over the place. Where the hell did it go? Anyway, the professional draftsmen among us, they look forward to this because then they can get us on one-upmanship. but I really do hate pens. Before I do anything, I want to see if it's going to write. Now, when they don't write, things I've tried to do is soak them in Windex. I've bought pen cleaner. I've done it, and you know what people think is, oh, Wendy's pens never get clogged up. Yeah, bullshit. Everybody's pens get clogged up. And I'm just going to have to keep playing with this. If this doesn't clean it up, I'll soak it in Windex and go on to another pen. Here we go. Hooray! Make a fool out of me. Anyway, any number of drafting pens, Stead, Ladder, make pens. Who the hell are these? Kohnor. Koh-i-Noor. Boy, if you could only buy pens that already had the ink in them. See, when I get frustrated, I resort to shit like this. I squeeze the tube until ink comes out. I'm sure Bob Martens right now is probably having a heart attack going, don't do that! Oh. Well, he's right. Anyway, this one has the widest tip, so this is one I know I'm going to need, so I'm going to, there we go. Oh my God, look at this, he's making inclines. What a professional. Okay, that's one. Look what happens to your hands, though. Before you're done, you look like Ink Man. Don't think, unless you're a professional draftsman, don't think you're going to have clean hands when the day is over. This is probably another non-approved thing, but it does work from time to time. I just put maybe 1/4 of an inch of Windex into a glass. This cleans the tip of the pen off. I've got a couple of these puppies writing now, so I really feel like I'm amazing. And I'll just let that soak there for a few minutes. The Windex is probably not the worst stuff in the world to clean your hands with. No, Bob sent me in all these tips, and they apply, you know, like if you're really a draftsman, like having jewel tip pens and stuff. Well, I just can't justify the price. That's the problem. So if somebody out there is on a big guilt trip and they want to send me a jewel tip pen that costs about $80 or something, you know, some guy wants to say, wow, that poor Wendy couldn't afford a pen when he was a young kid. I can't afford a pen now. And what I'm trying here, I shot some Windex down into this pen. Of course, I got 6 or 8 of them, so if I lose one along the way, I took some Q-tips and some Windex here. Let's see if this works. I'm experimenting more than anybody here. But what happens is once you get a pen working, I may as well do this, shoot it right in there. Once I get a pen working, it's good for the life of that plane. It seems like it doesn't go bad until you let it sit for a year. And I'm sure the answer is kind of common sense. You're not supposed to let it sit for a year without cleaning it. So maybe in my case, I ought to buy 1 or 2 pens a year like Lou Detka said and just shit can them at the end of the time. Now that means this is now clean. Let's see how cool we are. If we can get even 1 or 2 of these going, I'll feel like I'll have a head start on tomorrow when I actually want to start the inking. I've heard too that you can put a drop of alcohol in the ink. Well, I've never done that. But I'm going to be experimenting. There won't be that much ink on here, but there'll be some. And of course the tip probably has to soak in Windex overnight. Sure, nothing's happening down there. And I'll let these soak. But beware, this is all part of the game. I bet you're not going to believe this, but I've even got 2 of them working. And this is the one with the real thin lines. The real thin one is working well now. That's 2 of them. I just can't believe it. That's 2. I ought to just keep this one. I'll put the cap on it so I know this is working. 4 ink and working. Oh, if I can get 2 or 3 more of these working. If I go for 2 out of 6, I feel like the rest of them I don't give a damn. Let's see this guy here. Dead. Is this incredible? This one's got something coming out of it. Help, help, I need to know about pens. I need pens. Oh. Hey, this Ed Gallagher guy, he better send some pens here. Anyway, I'll work on these later. I'm going to let them soak overnight. I'm going out to get my wallpaper now, and that's it. I thought I'd get a little bit ahead here, but obviously not. Hey, this is funny. I just had, just a quick minute here.
Just got back from the store. I had some, where the hell's the label? I had some of this Cook and Done house paint mixed up, special color, to match the wallpaper. We picked up our wallpaper today. Hey, take a minute. I got to tell you a great story here. Picked up the wallpaper, had to match the paint, and I told the guy, he's doing this with a computer. I says, you know, when you hit that pigment button, I want more pigment in the paint. I want to be able to cover that molding. We got old shitty molding up there in one coat. He says, you can't put more pigment in the paint. I said, sure you can. You put the can there, you put the pigment in, and then you leave the can there and put the pigment in again. So we're going to have a test. This is house paint with double the amount. I can't believe it anyway. You got to get this wife beater too. Official OJ wife beater. So I got my wallpaper, I got my paint. I'm rocking and roll. I can't even put that back in the box. I'm ready. We're going to be starting this renovation soon. I'm itching. Now, believe it or not, I got a couple of these pens working. Actually, the whole deal was, and this is a good way to do it, I called somebody up who knows what the hell they're doing. And he said, take the pens, soak them in hot water, take that water as hot as you can from the tap, soak them, which is what I'm going to do right now, get out all the old ink. This guy doesn't like playing.